At 12:37 in the morning, my ex-girlfriend called and said 7 words that erased 18 months of carefully maintained distance. Ethan, will you come sleep with me? I sat upright in bed, staring at her name glowing on my phone. Rachel? Yes. Are you okay? There was a pause long enough to make me swing my feet onto the floor. I don't know, she whispered. I just know I don't want to be alone tonight. Rachel Hayes had never asked me for anything since the night she returned my apartment key and told me loving each other wasn't enough to build a life. Now she was asking me to drive across Seattle after midnight and climb into the bed we had once shared. I should have said no. Instead, 40 minutes later, I was standing outside her apartment while rain collected on my jacket. When she opened the door, she was wearing gray sweatpants and an oversized navy sweatshirt, her hair loosely tied back, her face exhausted rather than seductive. You actually came? She said. You sounded like you needed me. Her expression changed at those words. That's the problem. I stepped inside. What happened over the next several hours had nothing to do with the invitation I thought she had made. And when morning came and Rachel looked at me and quietly said, "Stay with me," I finally understood why she had called the one person she had spent 18 months trying to forget. Before I tell you how we ended up there, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy second chance love stories, where two people have to decide whether returning means repeating the past or finally changing it. And leave a comment telling me this: if an ex called after midnight and said they needed you, would you go? Because I thought Rachel was asking for one night. She was really asking a much harder question. Rachel and I had been together for almost 5 years before we broke up. I was 37 then, a structural engineer who had built most of my adult life around predictability. Rachel was 34 and managed community programs for a Seattle nonprofit that helped families transition out of temporary housing. She was good at entering chaotic situations and finding the human problem buried underneath the practical one. I was good at making sure buildings remained standing. Rachel used to joke that this explained our entire relationship. I believed stability came from reinforcing everything. She believed sometimes you had to tear out the damaged part and rebuild. We met when her organization renovated an old warehouse into a family resource center. My firm had been hired to evaluate the building, and Rachel disagreed with me during our first meeting because I recommended closing one section until repairs were completed. That room is where we run childcare, she said. Then you'll need another room. There isn't another room. Then you have a scheduling problem. No, Ethan. I have 32 parents who can attend job training only because their children have somewhere safe to be. I remember staring at her across a folding table covered in architectural drawings. Most people became intimidated when engineers explained liability. Rachel became more specific. Tell me what would make the room safe. I explained the reinforcement work. She asked what could be done temporarily. I gave her 3 options. She chose the most difficult one and convinced a contractor to donate labor. 2 weeks later, the room reopened. She brought coffee to my inspection and said, "You're less impossible when properly caffeinated." I asked her to dinner. Is this because I won the argument? You didn't. Then no. Rachel. She smiled. Friday at 7. That was how we began. For years we worked because our differences complemented each other. Rachel pulled me into experiences I would never have chosen. I gave structure to dreams she sometimes pursued without calculating the cost. We traveled. We adopted a ridiculous orange cat named Walter because Rachel claimed he looked emotionally rejected at the shelter. We spent Sundays buying groceries and arguing about whether 5 different kinds of mustard constituted a reasonable household inventory. Her parents liked me. My younger brother adored her. Our friends stopped asking whether we would marry and started asking when. Rachel wanted marriage, so did I, theoretically. That word eventually destroyed us, theoretically. Every time Rachel tried to turn the future into something specific, I turned it back into an abstraction. Would you want kids? She asked once while we were driving home from her sister's baby shower. Maybe. That means nothing. It means I haven't decided. You're 35. There's no deadline for knowing everything. I'm not asking you to know everything, I'm asking what you want. I want you. At the time, I thought that was romantic. Rachel stared through the windshield and said, "That isn't always the same as wanting the life I want." I didn't understand the difference until much later. The breakup happened in our kitchen. Rachel had been offered a promotion at work, and accepting it meant committing to Seattle for at least 3 more years. I congratulated her. Then she asked whether I wanted to buy a house together. Why does the promotion mean we need a house? I asked. It doesn't. Then why connect them? Because I'm choosing where I want my life to be. We already live here. In your apartment. You've lived here 3 years. Exactly. I could hear frustration rising in her voice, but instead of asking what was underneath it, I defended the arrangement. The mortgage on a house right now would be significantly higher than my payment here. This isn't about mortgage rates. Then what is it about? Rachel looked at me for a long time. I'm tired of living inside your life. That hurt because I misunderstood it. You think I control you? No, I think you love me as long as loving me doesn't require making an irreversible choice. Buying property isn't proof of love. I didn't say it was. Marriage isn't either. I didn't say that. Children definitely aren't. Ethan, stop arguing with things I haven't said. I went quiet. She sat at the kitchen table. I want a family, she said. I want a home that belongs to both people in it. I want a husband who doesn't treat every future conversation like I'm trying to trap him. I don't think you're trapping me. Then why does every decision need another year? Because important decisions deserve thought. 5 years is thought. So what are you saying? Her eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. I'm saying I can't keep waiting for you to discover whether the life I want is also the life you want. I asked the question that seemed logical and was actually cowardly. Are you giving me an ultimatum? Rachel shook her head. No, I'm leaving. That distinction devastated me. An ultimatum would have allowed me to react. Leaving meant she had already stopped asking. She moved out 3 weeks later. Walter stayed with me because technically he had been adopted under my name, although Rachel accused him of betrayal when he refused to get into her carrier. For the first 2 months, we occasionally texted. Then Rachel told me we needed distance if either of us was going to heal. I agreed. 18 months passed. I learned through mutual friends that she had moved into an apartment in Queen Anne. She learned, presumably through those same friends, that I still lived in mine. I dated a few women. Nothing became serious. I heard Rachel had dated someone named Mark for several months, and I hated how quickly my mind created an entire personality for a man I had never met. Eventually, I learned they had ended things. I pretended not to care. By the time her midnight call came, Rachel and I hadn't spoken in almost 9 months. Standing inside her apartment that night, I immediately understood that whatever I had imagined during the drive over was wrong. There were 2 mugs on the coffee table, one half full and cold. A cardboard box sat near the wall. Papers covered the dining table. Rachel closed the door behind me and crossed her arms. You can still leave. I've been here 12 seconds. I know. Are you in danger? No. Sick? No. Did someone hurt you? No. Then tell me what happened. She looked toward the living room. Can I get you something? Rachel. Water? Why did you call me? She closed her eyes. Because apparently 18 months isn't long enough for me to develop better coping mechanisms. That doesn't answer the question. I know. I removed my wet jacket and hung it beside the door. When you said sleep with you, what exactly were you asking? Her eyes opened immediately. Sleep, Ethan. Actually sleep? Yes. Okay. She almost smiled. You sound disappointed. I sound relieved that I didn't misinterpret this badly enough to become a cautionary tale. That earned the first real smile I had seen from her since arriving. I'm sorry, I should have phrased it better. You definitely should have phrased it better. I wasn't thinking clearly. I noticed. The smile disappeared. I pointed toward the second mug. Was someone here? Rachel hesitated. My mother. At midnight? Earlier. Is she okay? She's fine. Your sister? Fine. Then what? Rachel sat on the edge of the sofa. My landlord is selling the building. I waited. That's why you called? No. She rubbed her palms together. I've been looking at houses. That surprised me more. To buy? Yes. That's good. Maybe. You always wanted one. I know. So what happened? She looked at the papers on the dining table. I made an offer. Congratulations. It was accepted this afternoon. I smiled automatically. Rachel, that's great. Her face crumpled so quickly that I stopped. She turned away and covered her mouth. I crossed the room but stopped several feet from her. 18 months ago, I would have touched her without thinking. Now I didn't know whether I had that right. Hey, she shook her head. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. This is ridiculous. Probably. Tell me anyway. She lowered her hand. I spent years believing that house was the thing I was waiting for. A home. Something permanent. I finally did it by myself, and when the realtor called to tell me the offer had been accepted, the first person I wanted to tell was you. I said nothing. Then I got angry at myself for wanting that, she continued. Mom came over. We opened wine. She was excited. I pretended I was excited. After she left, I sat here looking at the floor plan and imagining where everything would go. Her voice dropped. And every version had you in it. That landed somewhere beneath my ribs. Rachel, I know. No, you don't know what I'm going to say. You're going to tell me nostalgia isn't a reason to reopen something that hurt both of us. Actually, I was going to ask whether you want me to see the house. She stared at me. Why? Because you called me. That isn't a reason. Then because I want to see the place you chose. She stood and walked toward the table. This is exactly why calling you was a mistake. What changed in the last 30 seconds? You're being kind. I generally try. That makes this harder. What would make it easier? If you were terrible. I can insult the countertops if necessary. She laughed unexpectedly, then wiped at her eyes. I missed that. Countertop criticism? You. The room went quiet. That's why I called, she said. Not the house, not really. I missed you, and tonight I got tired of pretending I didn't. We stood several feet apart, close enough that the old version of us felt dangerously accessible. I could remember exactly how it felt when Rachel rested her head against my chest. I could remember waking beside her, making coffee while she complained that I measured grounds like I was designing a bridge, hearing her sing badly in the shower. Desire was there, but it wasn't the strongest thing in the room. Grief was. You asked me to sleep beside you because you missed me, wait? I said. I had a panic attack after Mom left. That changed everything. Are you okay now? Mostly. Have you been having them? A few. Does anyone know? My therapist. I nodded. Good. Rachel looked surprised. You didn't make a joke about therapy. I've been going too. You? Try to contain your amazement. Ethan, you once described feelings as unverified internal data. My therapist also enjoyed that sentence. Rachel stared at me for another second and started laughing. The laugh became tears again. This time she held out her hand. I crossed the distance and she pulled me into a hug. I held her carefully at first, then felt her arms tighten around me and stopped pretending carefulness could make the moment emotionally neutral. I'm sorry, she whispered against my chest. For calling? For making you responsible for this. You didn't. I asked you to drive across the city after midnight because I couldn't calm myself down. You asked. I chose to come. Rachel pulled back enough to look at me. That sounds new. It is. Therapy? Annoyingly. She wiped her face. I'm not asking to get back together. I know. And I'm not asking for anything physical. I know that now. You really thought... Rachel, you called after midnight and asked me to come sleep with you. There were limited interpretations available. She covered her face. I'm never recovering from this. Probably not. Can we pretend I said something normal? Absolutely not. She hit my arm lightly, and for 1 second we were us again. Then she became serious. You can sleep on the sofa. You called me here to sleep beside you, and now I'm getting demoted? I'm giving you an exit. Stop. What? Stop deciding for me what I need to be protected from. Her expression changed. I'm not. You are. If you want me to stay, ask. If you don't, tell me to leave. But don't keep offering exits because you're afraid I'll regret saying yes. Rachel stared at me. You really have been in therapy. 16 months. 16? I started 2 months after you left. She sat down slowly. Why? Because I spent 5 years telling myself you were asking unreasonable questions whenever you asked me to make choices. Then you stopped asking, and I realized the silence wasn't nearly as comfortable as I thought it would be. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Why didn't you tell me? What would I have said? Congratulations, your breakup successfully motivated personal growth? Maybe. I wasn't doing it to win you back. I know. That mattered. She nodded. It does. At almost 2 in the morning, Rachel showed me the house listing. It was a small craftsman in West Seattle with a covered porch, two bedrooms upstairs, a narrow backyard, and a detached garage someone had converted into a studio. The foundation needs inspection, I said. Rachel groaned. There he is. You showed an engineer a 100-year-old house. I showed my ex-boyfriend the house I'm emotionally unraveling over. Your ex-boyfriend is an engineer. Unfortunately, I zoomed in on a photograph. That crack might be cosmetic. Romance is alive. You want me to lie about structural movement? Just once. No. She leaned closer to the screen. Our shoulders touched. Neither of us moved away. There's an inspection Friday, Masayam, she said. My realtor recommended someone. Good. Would you come? I turned toward her. You want me there? I trust you. Those 3 words carried more weight than they should have. Then yes. Ethan. What? You don't have to answer immediately. I know. Then why did you? Because I know my answer. Rachel looked down. That's new too. I'm getting uncomfortable with how frequently you're saying that. Sorry. Don't be. She showed me photographs of the kitchen. It was smaller than mine. The cabinets were old, the floors scratched, and the backsplash looked like someone had chosen it during a period of personal crisis. Rachel loved it. You hate the tile, she said. Deeply. I knew you would. It can be replaced. Not immediately. I didn't say immediately. She studied me. Old Ethan would already have a renovation spreadsheet. Old Rachel would already have demolished a wall without checking whether it was load-bearing. That happened once. Once was enough. We kept talking. Eventually the rain softened against the windows. At 2:46, Rachel yawned. You should sleep. So should you. She stood. Sofa? I looked at her. She swallowed. Or you can come with me. Rachel, I need you to be sure. I am. About what you're asking. I don't want to be alone. I want you beside me, nothing else. Okay. Her bedroom was unfamiliar. Different bed, different furniture. A framed photograph of Mount Rainier hung above the dresser. For a strange second, I felt jealous of the room because it had known 18 months of her life that I hadn't. Rachel went to one side of the bed. I took the other. We lay on top of the comforter at first, fully clothed, separated by nearly 2 feet. This is incredibly awkward, Itsakuman, she said into the darkness. You designed the situation. Thank you. Happy to help. 5 minutes passed. Ethan? Yeah? Can I hold your hand? I reached across the space between us. Her fingers closed around mine. That was all. No kiss. No attempt to turn vulnerability into physical certainty. Eventually, her breathing slowed. Mine took longer. I woke just after 6 with Rachel asleep against my shoulder, one hand resting loosely against my chest. For several minutes, I didn't move. Pale morning light entered through the blinds. My neck hurt. My left arm had gone numb. I had rarely felt more peaceful. Then Rachel woke. Her eyes opened, focused on me, and widened. Oh. Morning. She immediately moved back. Sorry. For sleeping? For using you as furniture. My shoulder has filed a complaint. She smiled, then became serious. How do you feel? Physically, 47 years older. About being here. I considered lying because honesty felt dangerous. Then I remembered why I was there. Happy. Her eyes dropped. That scares me. Me too. I expected to wake up embarrassed. Are you? A little. About calling? About needing you. Rachel, needing someone for one difficult night doesn't erase 18 months of independence. I know. Do you? She sighed. Intellectually. Emotionally? Working on it. She got out of bed. Coffee? Please. In the kitchen, I found the machine without asking. Rachel watched me reach automatically for the cabinet containing mugs. How did you know? You always put mugs above the coffee maker. That's unsettling. You alphabetize spices when we lived together. That happened during a stressful week. It lasted 3 years. She smiled. I made coffee while she opened the blinds. Morning turned the apartment ordinary again, which somehow made everything more dangerous. Midnight could be dismissed as loneliness. Morning required decisions. Rachel leaned against the counter. I need to say something before you leave. Okay. A. She wrapped both hands around her mug. Stay with me. I looked at her. Today? Yes. You want me to call out of work? No, I mean... She stopped. This sounded much clearer in my head. Take your time. Rachel looked directly at me. I don't want last night to become a strange one-time thing we never discuss. I don't want you walking out that door and disappearing for another 9 months. Neither do I. So, stay in my life. I'm not asking you to move in. I'm not asking us to pretend the breakup never happened. I'm asking whether we can stop acting like that caring about each other is something we have to recover from. I set my mug down. Yes. She exhaled. Yes? Yes. That was quick. I know my answer. She smiled, and this time neither of us looked away. Friday afternoon, I met Rachel and her realtor at the house. The inspection revealed exactly what I had expected. Old wiring in part of the basement, minor drainage problems, several windows that needed replacement, and a porch column that looked worse than it actually was. The foundation was sound. Rachel stood in the backyard while the inspector finished his report. Well, she asked me, it's old. Brilliant. It needs work. I know. You can afford the repairs if you phase them. And I think you should buy it. Her face brightened. Really? Really? You're not going to produce a spreadsheet? I have one. Ethan. But I won't show it unless requested. Progress. We walked into the garage studio. Sunlight came through dusty windows. Rachel turned slowly. I thought I could run workshops here eventually. For the nonprofit? Maybe. Financial coaching, tenant rights clinics, small support groups. We're outgrowing our current space. That's why you chose this house. Partly. I had assumed the purchase represented only her old dream of stability. It didn't. Rachel had built a new dream without me. Oddly, that made me want to be part of it more, not less. You should do it, I said. The studio? All of it. Even the terrible tile? I'm trying to grow as a person, not abandon standards. She laughed. Her realtor called from inside, leaving us alone for another moment. Thank you for coming, Rachel said. I wanted to. I know. That still surprises you. A little. Why? She considered the question. Because when we were together, I never knew whether you wanted something or had simply decided it was reasonable. That hurt because it was accurate. I wanted to come today. Thank you for saying it. I almost kissed her. I saw the possibility in her face, too. But neither of us moved. That restraint became our first boundary. For the next month, Rachel and I saw each other twice a week. We called it friendship because neither of us trusted a more ambitious word. I helped her compare repair estimates. She helped me prepare for a presentation to my firm's partners because she said my slides looked like a hostage situation involving spreadsheets. We ate dinner. We walked around Green Lake. She came to see Walter, who punished her 18-month absence by ignoring her for approximately 40 seconds before climbing into her lap. Traitor, I told him. Rachel buried her face against his fur. He remembers me. He remembers anyone who feeds him. You're jealous. Of my cat? Deeply. She looked happy sitting in my living room, and I hated how natural the scene felt because natural was exactly what had allowed us to avoid our problems before. After dinner, Rachel stood near the door. Can I ask something uncomfortable? Apparently that's our new hobby. Why haven't you kissed me? I leaned against the wall. Do you want me to? That's not an answer. It's the relevant question. Yes, my heartbeat accelerated. Then because I'm afraid we'll use chemistry to skip the conversation we still need. Rachel nodded slowly. That is infuriatingly reasonable. I hate it too. What conversation? Why we would be different this time. Maybe we wouldn't. Then we shouldn't start. She looked hurt, but she didn't retreat. What changed for you? She asked. Specifically? Specifically, I told her. Therapy had forced me to confront the difference between uncertainty and avoidance. My father had left when I was 13 after years of telling my mother everything was fine. I had grown up believing promises were dangerous because people used them to disguise uncertainty. My response had been to promise almost nothing unless I could guarantee it. I thought I was being honest, I said. But refusing to choose is still a choice. It just makes the other person absorb the uncertainty. Rachel sat down again. Why didn't you tell me you were scared? Because I didn't think I was. What did you think? That I was rational and you were impatient. That sounds like you. I know. She smiled faintly. What changed for you? I asked. Rachel looked at her hands. I learned that I made you responsible for validating my timeline. Meaning? I wanted marriage and children, which was fair, but eventually I stopped asking whether you wanted those things and started looking for proof that you loved me enough to become the person I needed. That sounds harsh. It was. I kept thinking if I explained it perfectly, waited patiently enough, or became important enough, you would change. And now? Now I know I'm allowed to want those things, but I'm also responsible for leaving when someone doesn't want them. I can't negotiate another person into wanting my future. Do you still want children? Yes. Marriage? Yes. A house? She smiled. Closing next week. Right. What about you? This was the moment. 18 months earlier, I would have qualified everything. I want to get married. Rachel went still. Like, someday? Yes, not theoretically. I want a marriage. Children? I want to be a father. Her eyes filled immediately. Don't say that because you think it's what I need. I'm saying it because it took losing you for me to stop treating desire like a legal commitment. Ethan, wanting children doesn't guarantee I'll have them. Wanting marriage doesn't guarantee it will succeed. But uncertainty about the outcome doesn't make the desire less real. Rachel wiped beneath one eye. That would have changed everything 18 months ago. I know. Why couldn't you say it then? Because I hadn't earned the answer yet. She looked at me for a long time. And now? Now I have. Rachel stood. This time she crossed the distance. Can I kiss you? She asked. Yes. Our first kiss after 18 months apart was nothing like the desperate reunion I might once have imagined. It was slow, careful, almost cautious. When it ended, Rachel rested her forehead against mine. That was a terrible idea. Probably. Again? Definitely. We did not immediately call ourselves a couple. The kiss changed the relationship, but we refused to let it decide the relationship. Rachel closed on the house. I helped carry boxes, but deliberately did not take over the renovation. When I started explaining how I would organize the garage, she raised one eyebrow. Your garage? Point taken. She hired contractors herself. She chose paint without consulting me. I hated the kitchen tile in respectful silence until one Saturday when she handed me a hammer. You have permission. For what? Destroy it. Are you serious? I have never seen you this happy. We spent 6 hours removing tile. That evening, we sat on the kitchen floor eating takeout because the counters were covered in tools. Rachel leaned against a cabinet. This is what I wanted. Demolition? No. A home where decisions feel shared without me disappearing inside someone else's preferences. I put down my chopsticks. Am I doing that? Not now. Tell me if I do. I will. Even if I hate hearing it. Especially then. She smiled. Your turn. For what? Tell me something you need that you didn't ask for before. Like, I thought about it. Space to be uncertain without uncertainty automatically meaning rejection. Rachel nodded. That's fair. But with a deadline. What? If the uncertainty affects you, I can't expect unlimited time. She stared at me. Who are you? You. Therapy is expensive. I'm trying to get value. She laughed and threw a napkin at me. The first real test came 2 months later. Rachel's organization received a grant to expand statewide, and she was offered the director position. It required frequent travel for the first year. Around the same time, my firm offered me leadership of a 3-year waterfront redevelopment project. Both opportunities were significant. Both would consume time. One Friday, Rachel canceled dinner for the 3rd time in 2 weeks because a meeting ran late. I told her it was fine. It wasn't. The old resentment started quietly. By Sunday, I had convinced myself that rebuilding our relationship had become secondary to her career. Old Ethan would have withdrawn and waited for Rachel to notice. Instead, I drove to her house. She opened the door wearing work clothes and holding her laptop. Everything okay? No. Her expression sharpened. Come in. I stood in the kitchen we had partly renovated together. I'm angry. At me? Yes. Okay. You've canceled 3 times. I know. And every time I said it was fine. So why are you angry with me instead of yourself? I almost laughed. Therapy has made you dangerous. Answer. Because I want to feel important without having to request importance. Rachel set down the laptop. That sounds familiar. I know. Do you want me to turn down the promotion? No, eh. Do you want me to travel less? Maybe. Do you want scheduled time that work doesn't replace unless there's an actual emergency? I looked at her. Yes, that I can do. You're not angry? I'm annoyed you waited 3 cancellations. Fair. But I'm glad you came. She walked closer. This is what different looks like, Ethan. Not never having the old reaction. Catching it before it becomes 3 months of silence. She was right. We made a schedule. She accepted the promotion. I accepted my project. Neither decision destroyed us. Then, 6 months after the midnight call, Rachel missed a period. We weren't living together. We weren't engaged. We had been officially dating again for only 4 months. She called me at 7 in the morning and asked me to come over. The phrasing made both of us laugh nervously. At least it's daylight, I said when she opened the door. Improvement. She held up a pregnancy test. I haven't taken it. I stopped smiling. Okay. I'm late. How late? Enough. Okay. She crossed her arms. You keep saying okay. I'm trying not to react before we know anything. I'm scared. So am I. That surprised her. You are? Of course. I thought you wanted children. Wanting children doesn't mean I become fearless when the possibility appears unexpectedly. Rachel sat down. What if it's positive? I sat beside her. Then we talk about what you want, what I want, and what happens next. What do you want? If you're pregnant and you want to continue the pregnancy, I want to be the father. Fully. Her eyes filled. You didn't hesitate. I'm terrified. That's different. Rachel took the test. It was negative. She cried anyway. So did I, though less visibly. The experience exposed something neither of us had discussed enough. Later that evening, she said, I was disappointed. Me too. That feels insane. Maybe it's information. About? What we want. She looked at me. Are we doing this backwards? Possibly. Should we talk about marriage before accidental pregnancy scares? Strongly recommended. Okay. Okay. Talk. We did. Not proposal talk. Marriage talk. Finances, children, careers, expectations, living arrangements, family obligations. What we feared. What would make either of us leave. Rachel wanted 1 or 2 children if possible. I wanted the same. She wanted to keep working. I expected her to. I wanted shared finances with individual accounts for personal spending. She agreed. We disagreed about whether to move into her house or keep my apartment. Rachel said, I bought this place for myself. I don't want you moving in because it seems efficient. What would make you want me here? Knowing we're building something together. Then let's not move in yet. That answer surprised both of us. 3 weeks later, my firm offered me a transfer to Portland. Not mandatory, but attractive. Regional director, higher salary, more authority. The old version of me would have evaluated compensation, housing, commute, and career trajectory before mentioning it to Rachel. Instead, I called her the same afternoon. I got an offer. Good offer? Very. Do you want it? I don't know yet. Okay. And I'm telling you before I know because you're part of the decision. Silence. Rachel? I'm here. What? Nothing. You're crying. A little. Why? Because that sentence would have saved us 18 months ago. I closed my eyes. I know. Come over tonight. Okay. At her house, we spread the offer documents across the dining table. Rachel did not tell me to stay. I did not ask her to move. We calculated what the job would actually mean. Portland was close enough for weekends, but far enough to change daily life. After 2 hours, Rachel said, if this is the job you want, take it. Would you come eventually? I don't know. Fair. Would you resent me if you stayed? That's what I'm trying to figure out. We spent 2 weeks figuring it out. I visited the Portland office. I liked the people. I liked the title. I disliked how much administrative work the position required. When I returned, Rachel asked, well? I'm turning it down. Because of me? You're part of why staying matters. You're not why the job is wrong. Are you sure? Yes. How? Because for once I stopped asking which option looks like advancement and asked which life I actually want. And I want Seattle. I want my current work. I want you. Eventually, if we both choose it, I want this house. Rachel looked around her kitchen. Even the tile? Especially now that it's gone. Our near loss came from something smaller than Portland. That was the lesson. Major decisions forced us to communicate. Ordinary fear was sneakier. Rachel's sister announced her engagement. At the family dinner, Everyone celebrated. Then Rachel's mother asked us, casually and without malice, "So, are you two next?" I felt Rachel stiffen beside me. "Mom," she said, "I'm just asking. Don't." The conversation moved on, but Rachel became quiet. Driving home, I asked whether she was okay. "Fine. You're not. I don't want to discuss it." "Okay." I dropped her off. 2 days passed, then 4. Rachel answered messages but declined dinner twice. On the 5th evening, I went to her house. "You're pulling away. I need space." "From me?" "From what I'm becoming around you." That frightened me. "Explain." Rachel folded her arms. "When Mom asked about marriage, I realized I'm waiting again. We've talked about marriage. Talking isn't doing. Rachel." And there it is. "What?" "That tone, the one that says I'm becoming unreasonable." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." I took a breath. "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing." "That isn't fair." "I know." She looked exhausted. "That's why I need space. I can feel myself turning every month without a proposal into evidence that you haven't really changed. And I don't want to become that person again." "Do you want me to propose?" "Not because I'm upset. That isn't what I asked." Rachel looked at me. "I want to marry you." The directness took the air from the room. "Okay. But I need you to want it on your timeline, not because I'm standing here crying." "I do want it." "Then why haven't you asked?" There was the question. The answer embarrassed me. "Because I'm scared that proposing will make it look like the breakup forced me into becoming what you wanted." Rachel stared at me. "What?" "Part of me keeps thinking I need more time to prove this decision is mine." "To whom?" I had no good answer. "Exactly," she said. "Ethan, I don't need you to prove you weren't influenced by losing me." "Of course you were. I was influenced by losing you. That's what consequences do." "I know. Do you?" "I think I do now." She shook her head. "I need a few days." "Are we breaking up?" "No, I'm asking for space before we turn this into another decision made under panic." It hurt, but I respected it. "Okay." At the door, she touched my arm. "I love you." It was the first time either of us had said it since getting back together. I looked at her. "I love you too." "That doesn't solve tonight." "I know." "Good." She closed the door. I spent the next 3 days resisting the urge to buy a ring immediately. Not because I didn't want one. Because doing it in response to fear would repeat exactly what Rachel was trying to avoid. Instead, I called my therapist, talked to my brother. I took Walter on an unnecessary walk in a carrier because apparently emotional crises destroy judgment. By the 3rd day, the answer became simple. I wasn't afraid of marrying Rachel. I was afraid of the story I had attached to choosing marriage. I wanted the decision to prove I had independently transformed, as though loving another person should have no influence on who I became. That was nonsense. Rachel had influenced me from the day she argued about a childcare room in a condemned section of a warehouse. Influence wasn't coercion. Love wasn't loss of autonomy. The important question was whether I could still say no. I could. I simply didn't want to. On Saturday morning, I drove to Rachel's house. She opened the door looking surprised. "I thought we said Monday." "We did. Is something wrong?" "No." "Then, I need to tell you something before Monday because waiting would be another performance." She let me inside. Didn't have a ring. I didn't kneel. "I want to marry you," I said. Rachel's eyes widened. "Ethan, this isn't the proposal." "Good, because I'm wearing paint-covered sweatpants." "You look terrifying." "Continue." "I want to marry you. I've wanted it for months. I delayed saying it because I thought waiting made the decision more authentic. It didn't. It just made you absorb uncertainty again." Rachel's eyes filled. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Not because I pulled away?" "You pulling away forced me to examine why I was delaying. It didn't create the answer." She stepped closer. "That distinction matters." "I know." "What happens now?" "Now you decide whether you still want the same thing." Rachel laughed through tears. "I do." "Then I'll propose properly later." "How much later?" "Don't ruin it." "I'm asking for project parameters." "You've been spending too much time with me." She wrapped her arms around me. "Stay with me," she whispered. This time I understood the words immediately. "I'm staying." I proposed 6 weeks later in the garage studio behind her house, the place she had imagined turning into a community workshop before she ever knew whether I would return to her life. By then, volunteers from her organization had helped renovate it. I told Rachel I needed her opinion about a structural detail which she correctly identified as suspicious because I had never voluntarily requested her structural opinion in my life. When she opened the studio door, there were no candles, no photographers, no family hiding behind furniture. Just me, the finished room, and a small table holding 2 mugs from the apartment where she had called me after midnight. "You kept those?" she asked. "You gave them to me when you moved." "I forgot." "I didn't." She looked at me and I took the ring from my pocket. "The first time you asked me to stay, I thought commitment meant giving up every possible exit. That terrified me. Then you left, and I learned that keeping every exit open doesn't protect you from loss. Sometimes it guarantees it." Rachel covered her mouth. "Ethan, I don't know everything about our future. I can't promise we'll never disappoint each other. I can't guarantee that every decision will be right. But I know who I want to make those decisions with." I knelt. "Rachel Hayes, will you marry me?" She was crying before I finished. "Yes, I have additional prepared remarks." "No, they're concise." "Ethan." "Fine." She pulled me to my feet and kissed me. When we separated, she looked at the ring, then at me. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "The night I called you, I thought asking you to sleep beside me was the most vulnerable thing I had ever done." "Your wording certainly created vulnerability. I hate you. We're newly engaged. Temporarily dislike you," she smiled. "But asking you to stay in my life the next morning was much harder." "Why?" "Because one night could be explained away. Staying meant finding out whether we could actually become different people together." I understood exactly what she meant. We married 10 months later in a small ceremony overlooking Puget Sound. Rachel kept the house. I sold my apartment and moved in 3 months before the wedding, but only after we made decisions together about what would change. I brought Walter, who immediately claimed the best window and treated Rachel as if she had purchased the property for him. The garage studio began hosting financial literacy workshops twice a month. I built storage cabinets under Rachel's supervision, which meant she rejected my first design because it looked like a municipal records facility. Our marriage wasn't magically easier because we had learned several useful lessons. If anything, marriage gave our old habits more opportunities to return. I still became overly analytical under stress. Rachel still sometimes interpreted hesitation as rejection. The difference was that we had language for it. When I started hiding inside research, Rachel would ask, "Do you need information? Or are you delaying a choice?" When Rachel became quiet and waited for me to notice what was wrong, I would ask, "Are you giving me a chance to understand or testing whether I can guess?" Neither question was particularly romantic. Both saved us repeatedly. 2 years after our wedding, Rachel became pregnant. This time the test was positive. She came downstairs holding it while I was making coffee. She didn't say anything. I looked at the test, then at her. "Are you okay?" She nodded. "Are you?" I started laughing and crying at the same time. No idea. She laughed too. Good answer. Our daughter, Sophie, was born the following spring. At 3 in the morning during her second week home, Rachel and I sat exhausted on the bedroom floor while Sophie screamed for reasons neither of us could identify. Rachel looked at me and said, "Remember when I called you after midnight because I didn't want to sleep alone?" Vaguely. I was an idiot. Why? Sleep was available. I laughed so hard I nearly woke Sophie more than she already was. Rachel leaned against my shoulder. "Still glad you came? Ask me after she sleeps." "Ethan." I kissed the top of her head every day. Years later, those 2 mugs from Rachel's old apartment still sit in our kitchen cabinet. They don't match anything else. One has a chipped handle. Rachel has tried to throw it away twice. I stop her every time. Not because the mug matters, but because I remember seeing it on her coffee table the night I arrived and realizing someone had been there before me. I remember believing there must be some dramatic explanation for the call. Another man. A family emergency. A hidden betrayal. The truth was quieter. Rachel had achieved something she had wanted for years and discovered that success didn't automatically erase grief. She called because she missed me. I went because despite 18 months of trying to move forward, I still cared whether she was okay. Neither fact meant we belonged together. That part had to be proven afterward. The midnight call created proximity. It did not create change. Change came from the months that followed. Boundaries, direct questions, choices made without guarantees, opportunities we evaluated together, moments when one of us could have returned to an old habit and chose differently instead. That is why I don't tell people that love brought Rachel and me back together. Love had been present when we failed the first time. What brought us back was the willingness to stop using love as a substitute for clarity. Rachel learned that asking for what she wanted did not make the answer less meaningful. I learned that making a choice before every uncertainty disappeared did not make the choice reckless. We both learned that independence and partnership are not opposites. The strongest version of our relationship wasn't two people who couldn't live without each other. It was two people capable of living separately who repeatedly decided that sharing a life was worth the vulnerability. Sometimes I still think about the exact moment her name appeared on my phone at 12:37 that night. I could have ignored it. I could have answered and told her calling me was inappropriate. Either choice would have been understandable. Instead, I drove through the rain to an apartment I had never seen and found the woman I had loved for almost 5 years standing behind a door she had built a new life on the other side of. She didn't seduce me. She didn't ask me to erase the breakup. She asked me to lie beside her because for one night, she was tired of being alone. Then morning came when loneliness was no longer enough of an explanation, and she asked for something much more frightening. Stay with me. I finally understood that staying was not one enormous promise made once. It was thousands of smaller decisions made after the dramatic moment was over. It was telling the truth before resentment. Asking instead of testing. Choosing instead of endlessly evaluating. Leaving room for fear without allowing fear to make every decision. Rachel had once left because I could not tell her whether I wanted a future with her. When she asked me to stay that morning, I didn't promise forever. I gave her something more honest. I said yes to the next conversation, then the next dinner, then the house inspection, then rebuilding trust, then marriage, then a family. Forever, as it turned out, was built from those smaller answers. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling me what you think. When two people still love each other after a breakup, is a second chance worth taking only if both have genuinely changed? Or can love itself be enough? For Rachel and me, the answer began after midnight, but it was everything we chose in daylight that made it last.